Hello, yes, we're back for 2019. We're here with another episode of FtLoC, and joining me is my FtLoC friend, Mr. Henry Catchpole.
Hello, Drewster.
Hello, Drewster. Yeah, that's my name. I almost forgot to introduce myself.
Yeah.
Yes, it's me. It's been a long time. We've had a great Christmas break and an exceptionally busy January. How was your January?
It was good, I think.
Yeah.
Cold, kind of.
Cold, wet, rainy.
Wet,
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
It used to be a slow start to the year, and it feels like for the last couple of years, January's just been super busy. I did the two big shows in the US. I went out to CES, which is increasingly becoming a car show, and we'll probably actually send out Carfection and Force to that next year, and the Detroit Auto Show, which is actually shrinking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's always been a surprisingly small show, the Detroit
It's weird because
isn't it? Sort of for such a big city, and you think, well, it's in America, it's going to be huge, and then you get there and actually sort of you walk around it.
It's very modest.
In about an hour and sort of go, right.
It's the size of one hall. It's smaller than the size of one hall at Geneva.
Yeah, and Geneva's quite a small European show.
Yeah. There have been a huge amount of films that have gone out on the site, and there's a lot that we want to cover and just share with you what we've been doing and what's coming up on the channel. But there are a couple of news items which we thought would be worth sharing with you. And Henry, I think you've got them in front of you now.
Generally it's been pretty slow, sort of looking back over sort of what's gone on. The big news, really, I suppose it's not particularly positive news, is it really? In terms of Brexit, obviously, from our sort of, let's get the big words out there straight away. But,
even FtLoC has been infected with the disease that is Brexit.
We can't help it because JLR is in dire straits, to be honest, at the moment. I mean, jobs being laid off. It was announced, I think, today that sort of, they've announced big losses. Things like, do you remember Geneva? So this time last year, really, out in Geneva, there was that Range Rover two-door concept that sort of, or it wasn't even a concept, it was sort of, they were going to build sort of 900 odd of them, I think, and looked really cool. You thought, they'll fly over the showrooms, and they cancelled that. So I think possibly I saw somewhere somebody saying because there were simply so many new body parts on it that it wasn't just a sort of nice easy thing to do, that sort of a nice easy money maker you would have thought. But not great times for JLR, which is a shame because they're actually producing a really good product at the moment. So
not cutting the two-door car out is not necessarily an indication of the worst times, but people being laid off is definitely more of a dangerous sign.
And they're not going to be at Geneva either. So
is there anything on a more positive note?
More positive note?
More positive.
Bigger positive note, like the BMW 7 Series grille.
Yes.
That dominated headlines, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like way beyond sort of the automotive sphere. It seemed to crop up all over the place. It's like, have you seen what BMW's done to the grille? It does look very cartoonish, doesn't it?
It's meme-tastic.
Yeah.
It's kind of at the opposite end of the scale to the old 8 Series grille. Have they actually given a reason for that as a design cue, or is it just like, we wanted to see how far we could push it?
Possibly.
Or they had the enlarge button pressed down on the photocopier that day.
Exactly. It looks a little bit like that, doesn't it? The thing is, I don't know, in real life, how big is it going to seem? Because the 7 Series is a big car, and in the pictures, that looks like a big grille on what is a big car. So in real life, I mean, it's just going to be...
Well, Lexus have been getting away with it. Their grills, like what was two separate ones, have now morphed into one giant hexagon-shaped gaping maw.
Yeah. It's basically an inglenook, isn't it, on the front of the car?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
anyway, there we go.
It's a talking point.
It was a talking point. I just thought I'd mention it because...
But what do you think, more importantly? Tell us in the comments below.
Yeah. And finally in news, this is a little bit sort of kind of... but the SMMT, who do all the facts and figures and stuff and collate all the numbers and things for sales, announced 2017's car colours in the UK, sort of the sales. I know.
Yeah.
You ready for this?
Okay.
It is basically monochrome. It's like looking at my Instagram feed. So we've got 59% of the cars are either black, grey or white, with a pretty even spread over that. So that's 1.5 million cars all in that. Then we go into blue.
Ooh.
And I don't think it's going to be like Mexico or Riviera blue. I'm pretty sure it's going to be more like TDF blue at very best.
Yeah.
That's 16%. Then you're back into silver, so you're back into your monochrome again. So that's up to 70%. Exactly,
black?
We should really.
What's the difference between grey and silver, really? Surely those two overlap somewhat.
Wait till we get down. So then we go down to red is the sort of the only bold colour in there, 9.9%. Then we drop, literally it goes from red in 6th to 7th place is green with 1.1%.
What?
So,
and that's all shades of green. That could also be like really dark British racing green or
basically
lime acid yellow.
I assume so, but then they've got 8th place orange, 0.8%. Bronze is in 9th at 0.5%, and then
that's
all
BMW, I bet, because they had bronze as a launch colour.
Yeah. Do we all go on the sort of the configurators, and when we clearly have no chance of buying, I don't know, GT3, and spec it up and go, yes, I'm definitely going to have electrical, and sort of think, that's perfect. And then if you actually walked into the dealership to go out, you go, I don't know, I think it's got to be, it's going to be GT Silver. Sorry, is that what happens?
Possibly also because even if you buy yourself a GT3 or you buy yourself an outlandish Lamborghini,
not that you could have had a GT3 in Electricum, because obviously it didn't do PTS for that, just to
verify that. Yeah. But you might spec a sedate, boring color to maybe ensure it's not a color that's going to fall out of fashion or be associated with something unfortunate and not affect your resale value, which frankly is what most people are really considering when they buy a boring colored car.
So go on then, what's your favorite outlandish color?
I'm kind of prone to the green that Lamborghini used, like on the Huracán when the first press cars came out of that one, because it is just like,
is that Viper?
Yes, so I think 70s, it is. Yeah,
the 70s.
Yeah, because it's just, I mean, you get it on a lot of see muscle cars around the 70s in the US that had it, because it's just like a color. Like, I don't care what you think about my choice of color. It's just like, yeah, it's green, and it just fits exotic cars really, really well. Not that I particularly like green. I mean, my favorite color is purple, but I'm not entirely sure I would ever have a color.
I was amazed that more people didn't go for when the first generation 991 GT3 RS came out, and there was that ultraviolet purple, which everybody went wild for, but I've seen so few cars actually spec'd with that colour.
Yeah.
Which I was quite surprised by, because I thought that was a really cool colour, because it was sort of a bit out there. It made your car stand out, but equally it wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't a fluorescent colour or something like that that's going to sort of really offend people. So I was surprised more people didn't go for that.
Last year, or maybe even been the year before now, we did a special film on a colour that McLaren picked for a 570 Spider, which was Murawai white, but it actually looks more blue. So I recommend you go back, and we'll put a link in the description for this and check that film out. But that said, yes, please let us know in the comments what you consider to be the best car and colour combination.
Yeah.
Right. Moving on, though, there have been so many films that we've been working on and published between the last time that you saw us in FtLoC, which was all the way back in the 18th of December, if my diary is up to date.
18th century, it feels like it.
Back in the 18th century when we last did our episode of FtLoC.
My cart
it's
hitched up to 4 horses.
My horseless
it's immensely
carriage.
Quick.
One of the big cars that we published the film on in the last couple of weeks, which is probably the most significant car for us to talk about over the year, is the 992. And I guess the question that everyone wanted answered, and is certainly answered in the film, but we can talk about a little bit here, is what were your expectations going in, and what was the result coming out of driving the latest generation of the iconic sports car that is the 911?
I was really quite worried going on that launch, because 991 for me had never really kind of hit the spot. There were ones I liked, definitely, but I remember the very early iterations of that really not being terribly good. The steering was terrible. That early E-Pass, and then it obviously got better. The GT products obviously ended up being brilliant, but that's a sort of separate thing. So yeah, I wasn't sure. And the big thing for me is I just wanted the steering to be really, really good, because if they get the steering right, then the rest kind of follows. And it literally, from the very first corner, coming out of the pit lane, turn in, wow. And you've got weight there, you've got feel. The car feels agile, it feels small, because I've had the optional rear wheel steer on it as well. It's a proper sports car, and it feels really good. And it feels like, as I said in the film, everything that went into 991, all the new things, so like turbocharging being introduced, like the E-Pass, rear wheel steering obviously came in at sort of, that point. We had PDCC, we had a lot of technology seemed to come in during the 991 generation, and it feels like they haven't haven't added any extra technology over and above that for this latest generation. So on a sort of spec sheet, you're sort of, if you're looking for that next leap in development, I suppose, it's not obviously there straight away. But what they've done is package all of these technologies into what feels like a much more homogeneous, harmonious package. Two-wheel drive definitely better than four-wheel drive in terms of steering feel, which was opposite way around to what it was on Line 1.
And you've driven the S, actually, because they're bringing that out before the standard Carrera, weirdly.
Yeah. I assume because that's simply what they sell the most of.
Obviously, the film is up on Carfection.com and on YouTube. We'll put a link in the description. Now, there was also, rather than new cars, quite a few exceptional older cars that you got to drive as well. We sent you up to Hethel to drive something special up there as well.
Yeah, that was very cool. The Esprit Sport 300, which in fact I drove at the back end of last year, and it was a very wet day up there, which probably played into my hands to some extent. And we got to drive around the track, and it's one of 64 cars produced, so very rare thing, and it was brilliant. I absolutely loved it. It was the first time I can remember spending a decent amount of time, certainly on track in an Esprit. And I suspect it was one of those cars I feared might feel a little fragile, should we say. You know, it is a Lotus after all, and sort of from that generation. You just sort of think, treat it with kid glove, and not a bit of it.
No.
All the upgrades that were there. It's a Lotus with a limited slip diff, for crying out loud. But the AP racing brakes and stuff like that, it all added up to a car that really did feel like you could grab it by the scruff of the neck and drive it hard, and it was great. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Yeah,
it's a great little film. Again, up on the channel with the links in the description. I was very jealous because that's. By that point, it's early 90s, isn't it? By that generation, but that it still has that very kind of 80s wedge-shaped look to it, which is just...
Yeah, it was just between the sort of S4, S3 and S4 SE sort of, and it just retains that little bit of sharpness to it, which is really nice. So, yeah.
Great little film. Definitely check it out. And you spent some time with Thornley Kellam as well, looking at their garage. There was two films that came out of that. One looking around just generally everything that they had there, and they had a large selection of fun stuff. Yeah, but the Outlaw, the Lancia Outlaw, the Aurelia. So
it's a curious car, isn't it? It's sort of it's a beautiful thing to go and see. I can see why it splits opinion, perhaps.
It's meant to, though, isn't it? Like that whole Outlaw, that kind of hot rodding thing. It's like taking something that is beautiful in its own right and going, not that I don't care, but I don't care. Yeah. And I'm going to make these changes to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an extraordinary car, and there's sort of this tiny little V6 in it. It's wonderful to sit there and to get to drive it. We had a very brief drive in it, which you can see at the beginning of the film.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
So with the idea of a Restomod, where you can take a car with the looks of yesteryear and add, within reason, performance and handling tweaks of today, what car would you most like someone to take apart and rebuild in a way where you still get the looks of that car, but something that handles well?
A Miura, for me, I think is one of those ones that I just remember. I was pretty nervous. I seem to remember when I did drive it. It was in Wales, but just certainly wasn't one of those cars you instantly felt comfortable in and sort of, and like you wanted to push it or knew what it would do if you drove it hard, sort of thing. So
the Miura is almost just too much of an automotive deity. That is what it is. But for me, Countach, especially late edition Countaches, so not like the early smooth like LP400, but like later, like the 5000 or the 25th anniversary, where they've just added all the extra bits, where it almost became undrivable. Like, okay, let's keep the body the same. I mean, to be honest, you could make that thing fly, do so much to it, and it would still like go, that kind of makes sense. That car wants to be better than it ever was.
I know Harry Metcalf has put electric power assist steering on his Countach. I think it's a switchable system actually, and raves about it. So it's absolutely fantastic. Perhaps we should do that with George's MGB.
Yeah, should we Restomod your MGB?
Just to see if he's paying attention behind the camera.
At the moment to that thing. Well, actually, that brings us on. Interesting, we have been doing a series of people on Carfection associated with the channel and their cars. And we've got one of your little Clio coming up pretty soon, actually.
Yeah.
I think we should do one on George's MGB, but that's one of the upcoming films.
Yes.
Your little Clio is going to make an appearance on the channel, which is quite nice.
Sort of, whole handfuls of people had asked for
which for us is a lot of people.
I drove it across when we did the film on the Civic Type-R long term that you can see.
Yep.
So I drove my Clio across and we just got a few shots, and it's just a quick little film so people can see what it is. But it's
chalk that under coming soon on Carfection. Very, very soon. Actually,
it's like so dinky. It's such a little rascal. You see it on film, and it's sort of.
So you turn up to a shoot recently, and it was like, it's cute. There's two more new cars to add to the list that we have films out on. You drove the 720S Track Pack.
Yes, I did.
Which again went up just fairly recently on the site and on YouTube.
Yep.
You weren't too blown away by the 720S when it originally came out.
No,
is that fair to say?
That is fair to say. Yeah, I to me at the time, what I thought about it was that it sort of did an awful lot of what a 911 Turbo S does in terms of that sort of usable supercar pace. So monstrously quick, actually really easy to live with as well and drive every day, and surprisingly comfortable, but lacks the sort of, in the same way a Turbo S lacks the drama of a GT3. Hasn't got that wow factor sort of to that extent, and that's what sort of, I suppose, from a drivetrain perspective, I felt the 720S lacked. I remember driving it and thinking, I must try one with a sports exhaust, and then getting out and discovering that one did have a sports exhaust, and that sort of thing. So it just felt like, whereas with a 911 Turbo, it's obviously wrapped up in a body that people will walk straight past on the street, the 720S is wrapped up in a body which people are going to stop and take snaps of with their iPhones, and so you've got to have some of the theatre to go with that, and I didn't feel that it didn't quite hit the nail on the head. This was definitely better, and I had heard subsequently that they'd certainly tweaked the exhaust, and this was, the whole drivetrain just felt much edgier and sort of, and more what you expect from a supercar. It's still not the most musical engine, but at least you get the sort of the pops and cracks, and it sounded better. So
Henry recently went on another shoot that he can't talk too much about, where the 720S Spider and the 600 LT Spider were both driven, and we'll both have content on those cars coming up, but they are under embargo.
Should be good looking film on the 720S,
especially on the 720S Spider. That will be coming late February, so look out for that. And I went to Bahrain and I drove the Huracán Evo, the replacement.
How was that?
It was very good. Well, the car was very good. The launch itself was difficult. It was fairly rushed. But so the Huracán Evo is essentially the facelift mid-cycle refresh on the all-wheel drive Huracán Coupe, which it replaces. So it's not like a model that sits in between. This is actually replacing the Coupe, and we can presume to see a rear-wheel drive version and a Spider version based off of the Evo pretty soon. But what struck me about the car is how much they've added to it. They didn't need to change too much. Little tweaks here and there would have been enough, but they've changed a huge amount. And where that benefits is people like me out on track, because it has this system. I talk about it more in the film, that it says feed forward, and they tell you about this before you've driven the car, and they go like, it kind of predicts what you want, and then adjusts the car before it happens. So for example, instead of getting it wrong mid-corner and traction control kind of limiting how much power you have, so you get around the corner, this kind of predicts that you were going to mess up and shuffles the torque around the car, so it's already rotated more than you thought you needed, and you come out the corner quicker. To normal people, or to people like Henry, that might be a bit much, and you might not enjoy that at all. The idea is that it works more harmoniously, so it doesn't feel like you do something and then the car reacts to you. It feels like you're moving more as one.
Here's a question for you.
Yes.
Have they made the seats any better?
No.
Oh no.
So I was stuck. I was stuck in traffic for a good 2 hours, I think, in that car, and I'm just it's so uncomfortable. And the thing is there's not much room to adjust the seats either. No. And I'm not as tall as you, but my head was already brushing the ceiling of the car. And I was like, on track, I felt like quite held in, and it was supportive.
You've got other things to worry about, haven't you?
But on the motorway, my back was pretty sore. Oh dear. But good luck finding someone who will have sympathy with you, going, "Oh, my back's sore. What did you do?" Driving my Lamborghini. It's like, So you're not going to find anyone who's sympathetic for you. It's got this cute little ducktail at the back, which somehow both creates downforce and reduces drag through a Venturi effect. Someone asked in the comments what a Venturi effect is, and it's basically like a spiral of air or fluid that can create a low pressure area. I think that's how it was explained to me anyway. I think it looks slightly better than the outgoing Huracán. It's not as garish as the Performante. I suggest you all watch the film on Carfection.com and on YouTube. Link is in the description. Coming to the channel pretty soon, we have another Porsche film, actually, the Panamera. Right, let me get this right. The Porsche, right, okay. Porsche Panamera Turbo S E-Hybrid Sport Turismo.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
I went on the launch of that car like a year ago and had to sit and learn that. It's a hell of a name. I think it's the largest name of a car I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned in the film, luckily they haven't tried to print that on the side of the car because they'd have to wrap it around each side. So for the uninitiated, what does the Panamera Turbo S E-Hybrid Sport Turismo, what is it?
What is it? It's like how to sum this up quickly. It's like a 918 Spider in an estate body.
Ooh, now there's a sales pitch.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not quite like that, obviously, but it's kind of.
Well, it uses
I
guess the hybrid technology that was pioneered in the 918 Spider to great effect, and puts in a car with very similar horsepower figures. Actually, much heavier weight, but
absolutely. I mean, it's got basically as much power as a GT2 RS, and it's got more torque than a GT2 RS, and it'll do 97 mpg on the combined cycle or something like that because of its ability to run on electric only. So it's an impressive thing, and it was chasing around the 720S track pack because we took them both out to the location where we shot, and so it had all the camera gear and stuff in it, and Charlie and George drove it more than I did, in fact. But it's a pretty impressive car, whether it's actually the one you'd buy or not, whether it's just one of those cars you look at and go, wow, that's impressive, and then you
buy something else.
I don't know, but
practical Porsches have always done quite well since the Cayenne came around. So and the fact is that they now have a variant on the Panamera, and this was the car that when it came out, everyone, not me, everyone else seemed to hate. I still like the Gen 1 Panamera looks, but I am very much in the minority there. But that film will be coming to Carfection very, very soon. Our long-termer, we've traded in the Discovery Sport, giving it back to Land Rover after a very long and very loyal set of service that it performed for us. And we have taken on something a bit different in the Civic Type-R, and you've got a film where we introduce it to
it's just a
masses.
Introduction to the car, and to find out what you guys would like us to do with it over the coming months, really. Sort of.
And that is a genuine question. There's a poll running on the YouTube video, which you can give your submission to on what you think we want to do. But we are genuinely interested what tests, both in terms of if there's anything you want us to test it against, or anything in particular you want us to do with it, or any particular aspect of long-term ownership, because we'll have this car for many, many miles over many, many months. And it's the only opportunity we get with new cars like this to actually feel like what it's like to own and operate on a daily basis, where most cars go back after a week or two. This one is going to be in our garage for quite some months. So we are very eager to hear what you would like to see us do with the car. The Civic Type-R is one of those cars that I think everyone can agree is it's fast and fun to drive. The looks divide more than a few opinions. I actually like it. I think it looks... You mentioned actually in the film, like, why should supercars have all the fun in terms of like outlandish design? And it's like absolutely true. Like, Lamborghini shouldn't have a monopoly on crazy creases and little winglets. And the Civic Type-R even more so than the previous generation. Like the FK2 had some touch to it. People thought, ooh, that's quite aggressive. And then the FK8 generation came out and people were like, ooh, actually, FK2 looks kind of understated and elegant by comparison.
It reminds me a bit of the when the Mitsubishi Evo started sort of just sprouting ever more sort of, those little shark fins on the back edge of the roof and things like that. It's sort of, it's taken on from that a bit.
There is a lot of interesting stuff coming to the site. If you're watching this and you've held on this far, I can absolutely guarantee that you're one of our biggest fans, and thank you very much for staying with us. 2018 was a fantastic year for us. We did really, really well, and hopefully we provided you with hours and hours and hours of interesting car content that you have hopefully shared with your nearest and dearest and helped us grow across the year. And 2019 is only going to be possible if you continue to do the same. If you aren't subscribed already to the YouTube channel, I can't imagine why you wouldn't be. Make sure you do hit that subscribe button, and crucially that bell icon, which notifies you every time we put out a new film, and that helps us show you what we've done and keeps us in business. But until the next one of FtLoC, which will hopefully be around in a couple of weeks, where we will probably be previewing the Geneva Motor Show, which is going to be coming around really, really quickly. All that's left to say is thank you very much, Henry.
Thank you very much, Drew.
And we'll see you next time.